and unknown faces. If you can, here you are. If you can, I ask you to switch on your video if you can. It would be lovely to connect deeper energetically by seeing also your face, if you can. If not, fine too. Welcome here. Welcome to this webinar. No worries. Yes, if you cannot switch on the video for any reason, I mean, no worries. But if you can, please do it. Okay, so for those who do not know me, my name is Guralotto. I'm translated by Labrador Muscari. And well, I'm a passionate person. I love alchemy. This is my field of research. And tonight I'm gonna introduce you to a topic that is, um, I would say, non-ordinary because, yes, I will talk about emotions. I will talk about the alchemical perspective of emotions. But I would love to introduce you to a field that is a field made of, let's say, invisible energies that actually guides our not only our choices, but actually our emotions, our perception, and is something that well um, is not talked about a lot. So is something that deeply influence our daily life without realizing it. And that's why I titled this webinar The Invisible Forces That Guide Your Life. So what we're going to do during this webinar is to understand a little bit more the subtle mechanisms that influence our emotions, our thoughts, our choices. And normally, these dynamics are often unnoticed, but they actually have a concrete impact on the quality of our life. So, we will discover how we relate to these invisible forces and how to develop a clear presence, becoming aware, more aware, and to reach, a balance, to reach a sort of neutrality, stable balance in order to become more alert, more aware, and to be influenced less by external energies, to remain more centered. So, what am I speaking about? So, invisible forces. Well, it's a big topic. I want to give you first a general idea about, the spiritual ecosystem we are living in. Okay. But then, I mean, to dive deeper into these collective fields of energy that we create, actually, we contribute to create through the way we think, through the way we feel, through the way we act, we react most of the times. So the spiritual ecosystem, so you know that we are part of an ecosystem, which is spiritual and material. Okay. The spiritual part, so the dimensions we participate in, they're not only physical, but also non-physical. And the non-physical dimensions actually are inhabited by many different energies, forces, entities, spirits. Um, yes, divine energies. I mean, there's many inhabitants in the subtle realm, okay, in the energy realm. We are mostly unaware about our interaction with these energies, okay, the majority of them, because basically we are very, very much connected and attached to the physical, okay, to the physical realm, as well as the fact that we've lost many, um, let's say, many talents that potentially are still within us, but because we've been identifying very much with the material, we do not use them. I mean, we've lost the use of them, although they're still very present in us. But by giving more importance, okay, to the physical, let's say that in the average human, the physical dimension, the physicality, also, you know, the body, the way we are, I mean, the way we express here in the physical is dominating our perception. So I would like to mm, go deeper um, into a very, very specific collective energy that actually we create, that are called in, you know, esotericism, in mystical, let's say, philosophies, as egregores or pendulums. What are these egregores? Have you ever heard this term? No, never. I knew it. Not even Labrador? Oh, come on. Really? Okay.
See, see, I was just
Ah.
mimicking your. No, all good.
So, egregores, this term um, is a term which describes collective forms of energy and information that arise from interaction between human beings. Okay. So, and it's not something, you know, ephemeral, symbolic, or something only psychological, psychic, but is a real phenomenon that actually, um, when many that happens, that creates itself when many people begin to think, feel, behave in similar ways. So is a kind of field of energy that is created by, you know, similar behaviors, similar way of thinking, that actually transcends the individual. So this field of energy is created by, the sum of all these parts, thoughts, emotions, way of behaving of humans. But actually, in time, if it continues in time, if it's constantly, let's say, fed, it becomes alive. It becomes a collective energy field that is alive, and it requires, okay, constantly to be fed, to be maintained in life. And if these, egregore, this is the specific term, okay, is actually fed by enlightened thoughts, bright and luminous, well, it actually creates, an egregore that it can be, it has to be fed in the same way as a negative one. So there's no, let's say that there's no distinction, moral distinction among positive and negative. Okay. But if is continuously created by groups of people, maybe belonging, having the same cultural background, belonging to the same religion, belonging also to a philosophy or to a political group, whatever, this constant interaction and similar attitudes, ways of perceiving each other or perceiving thoughts, perceiving, the multiplicity of expressions of people, but perceiving it in a very similar way creates this energy field, this egregore. So let's say that this happens, to explain it more simply, when groups of people shares same ideas, same system of belief, they have same or similar emotional reactions. Okay. So when these people repeat themselves, okay, um, let's say that above, okay, we create this egregore energy field. And when this energy field and groups of people behaving similar, in a similar way, okay, they create a more and more, let's say, well, in English, emotional, let's say, because in Italian is different. There's two terms to define emotions and, let's say, reactive emotions. There's two different terms. But in English, I know that you describe it with the same term, emotionally. But let's say that when this energy field becomes more connected with the group of people creating it, okay, and is constantly charged negatively, okay, so reactively with reactive emotional charge, they become synchronized. What does it mean? This is a very important key point, synchronization, because at that point, your individual thoughts, emotions, they are not individual anymore. They begin to move like a flow. So emotions are no longer only your own, but they become shared. They become more aligned and coherent, also to others people emotion and to the energy field you have created, and you start relating to it. And this, at this point, this connection tends to actually to sustain itself over time. So this energy field, this egregore, um, let's say that over time tend to maintain itself in existence through your thoughts and emotions. I mean, the group thoughts and emotions. I will leave you sometime uh, before emotivity, emotionality. Labrador is thank you. So the distinction among, reactive emotions and emotions is emotionality and let me, sorry, I didn't read it fully. Um, well, anyway, you have understood probably uh, the the distinction of the two. Um, I ask you, please, because I cannot, be attentive to what I'm saying and read at the same time the chat. So I ask you, please, just to raise your digital hand if you want to express something. I've just read something that someone wrote. Pika, just raise your hand and tell us. Yes, please. It's better if you talk. Thank you. I hear you. No, I don't know the work. I don't know the work about this guy you just mentioned. But as far as, I mean, the information I have, archetypes are something very different from egregores. I mean, at least in our Damanhurian philosophy, I mean, archetypes are, let's say, primordial energies, okay, that they belong to what we call the real. They belong to, let's say, the greater consciousness that have created also our universe. But egregores, the egregores I'm talking about, they are actually energy fields created through our human manifestations, expressions of thoughts, reactions, emotional reactions. Okay, okay, okay. Thank you. So, um, so in order for these energy fields, egregores, to be alive, they requires energy. And the energy actually comes from us in a very concrete way. Through what? Through three main elements: attention, emotions, involvement. So every time, let's say we repeat our way of thinking, we have, let's say we tend to have our, usual patterns that we repeat. And every time we react emotionally, every time we live into a dynamic without awareness, we are contributing to feed this field. And this, um, you know, also explains why certain situations seem to repeat endlessly. Because not because people, are incapable of changing. Well, this is, one topic. Sometimes it is because people, but not because we are, bad, that we do not want to change, is because the majority of people do not know how to change. Okay. But is actually more than that, is also because these energy structures, egregores, energy fields that we have created, they tend to nourish, okay, to feed themselves through the way we constantly repeat ourselves. So let's imagine, to give you an example, because since we are born and we grow, depending on where on the planet, but we are immersed in these systems. And when I mean systems, I mean these, energy group that is created by belonging, to a family, by, attending a school, by being part of a precise society, or by working in a company. So each of these environments have, their, let's say, rules, have their precise identity. They have expectations to be met, you know. So let's say that, all these entities, okay, they teach us what is right, what is wrong, what we should do, how we should be. And often, the majority of people do not fully realize that by being, within these, collectives, we begin to invest energy in these structures, not because we choose constantly, okay, to be part of it, or we have clarity, okay, whether we still agree with that system or we do not agree with that system anymore. But we are driven, we are guided by sense of duty. We are guided by the need of being accepted, or the need of being approved, or because we fear judgment, or because of guilt. Do you know all these emotions? If you don't, you are lucky and you've done a lot of work on you. But if you still have, you know, some of them playing, guiding you in your choices, it means that you're not fully independent. Even if you belong like us, Andrena Labrador, me, and other people that I see belonging to like a community, a spiritual community, sometimes it becomes very difficult to perceive actually what you really feel and think and separating it from, I mean, what the group you belong, okay, might feel and think. Maybe there's two different, feelings and sensations, but maybe they're so, connected and meld together that you cannot distinguish what's yours and what's others. So when many people share the same mental, emotional patterns, you know, uh, uh, thoughts stop being only individual and they begin to create a flow. Yeah. So when, for example, well, in my family, my blood family, I've been always considered the voice out of the choir, not to say the black sheep of the family. So whatever I was doing, I mean, I was wrong from my family perspective. I was doing a mistake. Even if, from my perspective, I was acting, I mean, following what I really thought, what I thought it was right for me. But over time, by being considered the voice out of the choir and, not to conform to my family way of thinking, desires, expectations, I arrived to a point where I thought whether I was, I mean, whether I was actually, if I was actually doing something wrong, because outside of me, there was no one understanding or, you know, perceiving the goodness into brackets of what I was doing or my, respecting my own choices, even if they were different. So, and actually, and since I arrived to that point, you know, um, I was always doubting, you know, well, am I wrong? Are they wrong? Am I right? Are they right? And this continual, I mean, these doubts, um, all this confusion actually was constantly feeding, the egregore created by my family environment. So driving also my choices. So it was not only, uh, me, but I was deeply influenced not only by my parents, but by also these energy field created by, decades, at least 20 years of these constant thoughts of my parents directed to me and my constant doubts, feeling or trying to perceive whether my choices were wrong or right. So, and this, the same thing happens, in our workplace, no? Um, and, even in workplaces, when you feel constant pressure to perform, and you constantly feel polarized between right and wrong, um, it creates a lot of conflict within you and also a lot of conflicts outside of you. And these dynamics repeat, constantly in any field of life, isn't it? And is always, I mean, the majority of times is always about, defense, tension, attacking, feeling right, feeling wrong. But these actually the systems in themselves, so family, work, whatever, but also egregores, this energy reflection that we create above us, they're not good and bad because there's actually no moral intention in there. But the purpose, okay, of them is to continue to exist. And so they need energy to exist. So, yes, please, I will get there. That's a very important question. I will get there. But you know what? We need to consider also another element before we start, perceiving what you just asked, what's yours and what's someone else, or what's about, the egregore. So we need a key concept is importance. So the more importance we attribute to something and the more energy we give to it is very, rational. And the more energy we give, the more, you know, the egregore or the organization is strengthened. These key point of, importance is actually importance is what energetically charges this phenomenon and makes it dominant in our field. So when something becomes too important, it becomes too dominant in our life. And when something is too dominant, so is not in balance, but I'm not talking only about, what we might consider negative. It's also about what we consider positive. It could become extreme. When something is too dominant, it creates tension. It creates also rigidity. It creates a polarization. So, and what happens, when something, because we are not being, we are beings that that we work functionally when in our life, all fields of our life are in balance. So maybe, at this point of human history, and this is something crucial that is actually happening, we arrived to a point in our human history where the dominance, okay, in everybody's life is work, right? And the majority of human beings are not so lucky that are doing the work they love, but they're mainly doing the work they're doing, to earn the money, to match their survival or their needs, whatever it is. Now, with AI, we are entering in a phase where a lot of work, a lot of jobs won't be needed anymore. So, the concept also within us, the concept, the importance, the dominant importance we gave to the work, okay, we've been doing most of our life, it will create probably soon, uh, let's say, a void. I mean, when more people won't have jobs anymore, and this is what they are considering, who's, ruling the world, um, that AI will, I mean, take over many jobs done by humans now. They are wondering now, I mean, how a human being could give value and meaning again to their life when by giving so much importance to work and not having it anymore. It will create a huge void. Void, is something from where you can create. If you have awareness, if you have knowledge, information, if you give meaning to your life, but if you do not have these elements, it will be very much destructive than creative. Because what happens actually in our daily life, and the way the majority of human beings express themselves is always through reactions. So, um, immediate, actions, reactions, uh, very instinctual, very much driven by survival. So, very much driven also by identity or the sense of belonging we have to an organization, to a culture, to a society, to whatever. So, what we do is that when someone, okay, contradicts us, it is not only an idea that is being questioned, but it is as if who you are is questioned because we constantly mixed up with we consider what we think our identity, we put it together and we do not separate it. So when someone is contradicting my way of thinking, is not, trying to question who I am. Is just offering to me a different perspective, his own view, his own perception of the same thing. But it's because we feel also very important, actually, in time and in our Western society, we became extreme individuals, and our individuality, okay, is more, the expression of our individuality is more important than anything else. So we develop a lot of, mm, we didn't develop responsibility. we do not still consider enough that our way of being impacts others positively or negatively. So we gave a lot of importance to us individual beings, our needs, our desires, all the, let's say, also, the importance of, I mean, I go to extremes, but the importance is equal having a lot of um, physical owning a lot of things, physical things, owning. I don't know. Now I go to the extremes, but do you think that it makes any sense? I mean, for one individual, okay, to own like 20 villas everywhere on the planet, not inhabited, for 2 days and use, I don't know, personal jets, planes, to move from one villa to the other whenever you need. I mean, this is unbalance I mean, seen on a greater scale, from the greater scale of, consciousness, intelligence. This is not something intelligent from the perspective of a greater scale. I mean, so too much, importance to things that actually, I mean, they're not relevant to evolve, for evolution. And when a lot of importance is given to anything, a lot of importance is given to anything, it generates an emotional energy charge. And this is exactly what feeds these egregores. Because if we would be able to express more awareness, more consciousness, okay, I mean, everything would function very, very differently, in a completely different way, because consciousness, okay, is something that does not impose itself, is not dominating. It doesn't dominate others. It does not shout. I mean, I'm in need. Uh, there's only my desires. It does not react. I mean, consciousness is something silent, is something stable, is something that does not need to assert itself. So, and for this reason, in ordinary perception, consciousness, awareness seems less important, but in reality is not less important. It is, let's say, less charged with tension. This is the key point. Whenever we create tension, also, moving towards a positive result, but tension is that element that creates energy feeding egregores. So, um, what consciousness creates is not importance, is not that sense of tension, but it creates presence. Presence, a state of presence, is the only thing that do not feed these energy containers. This so going back to the question, who asked the question before? Alexandra. Okay, can you formulate again the question? Right. So we need to consider two main things that we normally express when we have a very um, um, powerful, let's say, emotion. I mean, in order to distinguish it from what's outside, is, I mean, these two elements. First, I mean, is not to repress it. So normally, when we have um, strong emotions, we try to control them. We try to block them. But to repress an emotion, whether is, good or bad, I mean, from your perception, um, the energy of it do not disappear, but it remains, okay, and it continues to work within and also creating that egregore outside of you. And second is feeding constantly that emotion, feeding it, you know, in a way by repeating it. I mean, recreating the same mental pattern in order to recreate it. So in this case, um, let's say that when you feed, you know, such an emotion, instead of having the energy for you, it flows directly to the egregore outside of you, strengthening it. So the way to start distinguishing what yours and what is created, or what is spread from the majority of people around you, okay, is uh, not repressing and not feeding. Not repressing means allowing any emotion, okay, to be within you. You need to feel it in the body. You need to recognize it without judging it. Not feeding it, it means not to identify with that emotion and not reacting automatically. So, automatic reaction is what plays the game of the egregore to continue to exist, reacting automatically. So we need to enter in a state of active presence. Active presence is being, let's say, create a detachment from that emotion, is a way to see more clearly, okay, what is going through you, not repressing it, not fearing it. So, not losing yourself in it, because most of the time we lose ourselves within emotions we feel and we become them. So we do not distinguish. So um, we need to become, more aware of what we produce within us, okay, and more aware of what we produce outside of us, energetically speaking, because there's always, this constant interaction. So, what we do here is always a reflection in the subtle, dimension. Now we're talking about a very specific energy container, which are egregores. So I'm just referring to this. But out there, the many energies that are inhabiting the spiritual dimension, I mean, they constantly have an interaction with us, depending on how we manifest. But let's stick specifically to egregores and to emotions. It's not something easy to be done, not to repress, not to feed emotions, because, when you are caught in a situation, in a dynamic, okay, it's not easy to pause, instead of reacting immediately to the other person, to the situation or whatever, and to start, observing what is happening, how this emotion is flowing within you. You are, observing it and recognize it at a distance in a more detached way. You are not becoming that emotion because you are not completely involved, because you are taking some distance by observing it. So, and this creates a particular state of being, which is presence to yourself. This is a more aware state of being. Okay. And it's like being inside the experience. So, inside experiencing that emotion, but at the same time with a part of you that observes outside. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Give me a more detailed. So tell me about an emotion that you despair. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mhm. Allora, yes. You need to be simultaneously in these two positions contemporaneously, not shifting from one to the other. It means that you need to be in the experience and outside of it, okay, at the same time. But what if I tell you that the despair emotion, okay, is a raw material? Because in alchemy, okay, any emotion is considered raw material, meaning that is not worked, that is not, you haven't transformed it yet in something else. And these, let's say, experience of being in the experience, so living your own despair, okay, and at the same time see at a distance what your despair creates within you, okay, in time, it requires time. It is a process in order to transform it in something else and transform also your consequent action or reaction. Because if you want to, for example, you will be more able, okay, to transform it if in that very moment you do not actually react to the person, to the situation, but you pause, okay, you do not say nothing, and you just observe and be in the experience. By doing this, okay, pausing, you will see that if you do not respond in any way to that person or situation, you will see that what did you say? The despair will transform in something different. But it's always this very reactive way we have to respond to situation by using words or using the voice or using a movement or using whatever that breaks the attention that you are giving, the observation. There's many stages, also within this method. But um, is you see, I mean, to be more precise, when you do this self-observation, you are in the experience of who is reacting, so you, and in the experience where you see the reaction, which is the awareness of seeing yourself. And this divides, okay, the situation, the experience in two different components. You experiencing and yourself seeing you through your awareness, the experience you're doing. In alchemically speaking, this division in two components is called solve in Latin. It means separation, to divide, to divide. And actually, you are dividing your attention, your presence in two different points. So you living the experience and you observing yourself. So you are not completely inside matter, but you are not even outside of it. You are in a middle position, okay, where um, where let's say, um, in the middle position where the presence, okay, the emotion is moving through you, okay, and the presence that observes, so the emotion is something in movement within you, okay, and you are living it while it moves and what it creates in the body. The presence outside of you observing is a more stable principle. And when these two elements coexist without one canceling the other, there's a very specific um, energy that is created that is a generative energy. Is not conflict, is not tension, negative tension, but is a generative energy that in alchemy is called, well, it could be called fire, an alchemical fire. So the fire is not the emotion in itself, but the fire, the alchemical fire, is born from the capacity to hold the two together without fully identifying nor with the emotion you live, neither with the observer you become. In this way, you do not repress the energy, you do not feed it, you just remain present. And by remaining present, the emotion probably at first will intensify, but then it changes in quality. It becomes something different. The body in alchemy is a container. So it contains all these flows, all these, well, actually emotions that are energy movements, energy flows within us. And our body is a vessel, is a container, is a temple. By starting considering our body a vessel, a container, and by using this technique, okay, um, the emotion will transform in time. Um, there's another important part that is related actually to time, because when the part of you observes, okay, you become awareness, you become presence. And by becoming more present, okay, and more aware of what's happening, observing yourself, you separate matter from consciousness, from awareness. So you disidentify from your material aspect only. You bring your awareness outside of your body, observing. Okay. So, and this changes time. How? It changes time because when you are in a very automatic reaction, when everything becomes immediate, when you respond to a stimuli, okay, um, I mean, you react is something very immediate where there's no actually, you're not taking any time, okay? You just immediately respond to an external stimuli. When you observe, you create a space. And in that space, time, okay, in that space, time becomes something where you can actually choose something, your action, how to act in a more aware way. So you are also manipulating, I mean, time in this sense, choosing not to react, but to act, pausing and observing. And that pause, it means sometimes also not to talk, to do nothing. Just stay in observation, listening to the person you have in front, and this is it. And maybe saying, okay, I'm feeling, what's the term that Alexandra used? I forgot, sorry. Help me, Labrador. Uh,
What are you referring exactly to? Despair?
Despair. So I decide to live more fully my despair without, reacting in any way possible. So I say to the person, listen, I want to stay with myself for a moment. I will come back to you when I finished my process. Example. You go, you contain that despair, you feel it in your body, you do not nourish it, you do not repress it, you observe it. And you will see that if you eliminate for a moment, the possible reaction to the external, to the person, to the situation, that despair will transform more easily. Because that pause, it gives you the time to actually choose something, a different response. So the alchemical perspective is that emotions are potentially, and I'm talking about any emotion, it could be fear, it could be pain, it could be love, it could be joy, whichever emotion potentially is a very, very intelligent flow of energy, is an information, yes, but is something that you can transform and direct. So an emotion is potentially is an intelligent current which moves within us, is a moving current because normally to the emotions we feel, we respond, we react. But in this case, when our response might be not functional for our evolutionary process or non-functional for the people involved, non-functional for the people involved to better understand themselves, also their own process, is better to break these reactive mechanisms. So every emotion is a force within us, but is not something fixed. Is something that is in movement, is very dynamic. So And we do, I mean, the majority of us, I mean, not knowing, I mean, identifies very often with their own emotions fully in the moment they live it. So you become that emotion. And this is what triggers reactivity by identifying fully with the emotion. Um, you need to enter in I mean, to, let's say, consider the idea that an emotion, any emotion, has to be fully experienced. And by using the method of living it fully and observe it at the same time is a way to reintegrate that emotion in differently in your system actively, to reintroduce it transformed in an active way into your system within you. Active because you are using an active presence to observe it. And this will strengthen, I mean, will produce much more clarity. The clarity to distinguish, okay, more, what you really deeply feel, not contaminated or influenced by others' emotions or thoughts. And in this way, you also take your responsibility in feeling that emotion. Because, I mean, the experiences we have outside of us or the people we meet and the way they are and the way they, express towards us, you need to take everything, the outcome of these interactions, as triggers, something that triggers in you what you already contain. I mean, a specific emotion, it triggers in you a specific, current force, okay? And you work on it. Do not giving the responsibility of that emotion to someone else. So you have the instrument, the practical instrument, okay, to work on it in order to teach yourself not to react, to become able to choose the way you want to act back, to develop your presence. So let's do you have, I don't know if you wrote any other considerations or questions, but if you have, just open your microphone and talk. Yes, please. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. But I think that what really starts making sense within us is what you are able to experience, what your own emotions. So, right, this is the experience that we are called as potential consciousnesses to do is not something theoretical. I mean, of course, everyone can describe these processes differently from their psychological, alchemical, whatever perspective. Okay. And maybe we're saying the same thing, more or less. But what, yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Right. But what I want to emphasize is that alchemy provides, very specific techniques in order for each one of us to experience these transformations. Then is up to each one of us whether we want to apply it, okay, in our life or not. And that depends very much on the motivation you have or your goals, your directions, what you want to reach. It depends on that. Um, I want to emphasize this concept because in the Western world, specifically, we are very good in, expressing words, content, theoretical information to describe whatever. Plus, there's also very specialized, of course, people, healers. I don't say alchemists on purpose, but healers, doctors, psychologists, whoever, that they support, I mean, with their own techniques, your healing process. But in alchemy, okay, actually in the Damanhurian alchemy, whose healing is you healing yourself. Because you healing yourself is experiencing and choosing yourself the methods, the techniques, the rituals, whatever that alchemy, provides for you to do. I mean, the instruments you are more tuned with, you're more aligned with, okay, in order to heal yourself effectively. Healing in alchemy is not only healing, the body, not only the psyche, but not only, your energy field, but is creating a creative connection with the subtle spiritual energetic ecosystem. So, not giving away energy, but establishing a creative energy cycle where you, by expressing more your awareness here in the material, dimension, you will tap into wider, aware, conscious energies above that will, let's say, give you, not suck you, but give you more energy because you enrich with your aware, manifestation here. You will enrich also uh, their experience not supported by matter. Well, I summarize a huge concept, but this is the way we create a beneficial, let's say, circle of energy. Because the energy, well, from the Damanhurian perspective, first and most of all comes from, you know, well, prana, let's say the vital unit, the vital intelligent energy of the universe, plus divine energies, okay, that gives us support when we do, a process in the direction of consciousness. If we do not, let's say that if we go in the opposite direction, not developing awareness, ultimately consciousness, okay, we keep feeding energy reservoirs like, from the micro, our ego, to the macro, I mean, these intermediate energy containers where I'm talking about egregores and the macro anti-life energy forces. So in this case, our process is not supported, but we just feed to maintain these, ego, egregores, anti-life energies in existence. Well, I made the story. Yes, Sverre, but do I know you? No. Okay. You, you've never been here. You've never been to Damanhur. Ah, many years ago. Okay. Okay. Question. Egregore. Mm-hmm. 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 It is very sensitive. It is very sensitive. What do you mean when you say to fall out? Exactly. Okay. Well, you discover it when you feel that no matter what other things, okay, you feel free to express your different way of thinking, and you become, let's say, I mean, you do no longer conflict with others' view, or you do no longer conflict within yourself if others have a different view from yours. This is, I'm talking about one of the biggest challenges of humanity. And this, which is step out from conflicting, because even here, I'm living in a spiritual community and we're still conflicting with one another. But why we do conflict? Because we are still thinking, that as individuals, okay, we are in the two polarities of right and wrong. But from a greater perspective, there's no right and wrong, there's only differences. So if I do not learn to respect different views, different way of thinking of others, I do not respect also, let's say, the different parts of us that are not always coming together and integrating to go in a same direction. Meaning that the disconnection starts from within. So here there's another important concept to introduce, that we are not just an I, we are a we. I mean, the concept we have, let's say, is an hypothesis, okay, that we have here in Damanhur, is that our soul is made of many parts, many different life experiences, many different, you know, parts, also characteristics that we developed not only in this very life, but in other existences. And very often all these parts, they're not working harmoniously together. And we experience this every day, the conflicts. A piece of me wants to go in a direction, another part wants to do the opposite. One day I love my husband, and after 1 month I just hate it. How come? I mean, these conflicting parts. These are all parts that we need to start working with in order to, again, observe them, not judge them, ask them to work in a way as a team, as an integrated team. Okay. Finding, let's say a view that puts together the differences, the many differences. So a more evolved approach to others is to stop thinking that, our convictions, let's say, our system of belief is better than someone else's, or that I'm right and you are wrong. But I listen to different perspectives, to different views, to different beliefs. And if I feel that in these different beliefs or thoughts, okay, there's something useful for me to be integrated, I'll take it. If not, I don't. Fine too. Wow, bravo. Discernment. Yes. But this is not only, you are mature. You've done a lot of experiences in your life. Your stage of life is where actually you start letting go. You let go what is not needed anymore, what you don't consider, useful for you anymore. You go to the core of things, to the value, because this is what maturity creates. But in alchemy, with alchemical techniques and methods, we do not need to arrive there, and realize it. Maybe, you are realizing it, discernment. But there's people that never realize that discernment, detachment, disidentification is something useful. So we can create this process of giving more meaningful, um, let's say, meaningful interpretations of everything in order to, let's say, start transforming when we decide, when we are 18, 20, 25, 30, whichever age, and starting intentionally this process. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I'll see you. Well, we're going to have another webinar next month. So if you want to be present, well, you will receive the information of it. And I wish you the best to make the most of every situation and to keep learning. To be open to learn always. This is the wish also for me. Thank you for being here.
Goodbye,
Con
everyone. Grazie
voi,
ancora.
con voi tutti. Iveta, oh my goodness. Wow. I, I haven't seen you for such a long time. Yeah, so you're coming with the Boulder group. Well, I hope I will see you. A big hug to everyone. Convoy.